If you've got a matte vehicle, it's very important that you look after it properly. Whether it's got matte paint or whether it's a matte wrap, they look really cool. And if you look after it, they'll continue to look very cool. But all too often I see in a car park what was once a really cool matte car now looking all faded and scratched and not so good anymore. You don't want that to happen to your car. So I've lined up some products here, but before I go through them, I think it's important to understand why is matte looking matte. It's not absorbing light as a lot of people think. What's happening is that light is being refracted, much like in your overhead lighting, where it's dispersing the light on different angles so that it's not in one solid beam. That's what's happening with matte paint. It's reflecting light, but it's reflecting it at different angles so that it doesn't see shiny and bright like gloss paint. And this is important to understand because most car products are trying to add gloss and shine and make things smooth. Polishing is removing the top layer to get down to a nice smooth layer. All of these products and techniques are not what you want to have on matte. If you machine polish or hand polish matte, whether it's a wrap or paint, you're going to remove that matte effect and have a shiny spot. So you can't polish matte paint. If you scratch it, you got to live with it. Or it's a respray or a rewrap, and then you got to make sure everything matches. So you're best to avoid that. You also don't want to use any soaps that have got gloss enhancers or waxes or anything that's trying to make it shine. Now if you wash it once, you're probably not going to notice the difference, but it's over the life of that vehicle as you wash that you're going to start to see things detract and the paintwork not look as it used to look. The worst thing you could do is wash it with dishwashing liquid. You see this a lot on ranges with the matte stripe and the sign writing, and they're washing it with dishwashing detergent, or they're going through car washes with really aggressive chemicals, and it just really fades out those matte stripes. And once that's gone, it's pretty much, you can put VRP on it and things like that, but really it's take them off, and if you want to, put fresh ones on. So the good news is with matte, it's actually really simple to look after it. It's just that it's very important that it's done the right way. The first thing is you want to use a soap that's designed for matte products or that is safe to use on matte products. So we have a huge range of soaps. Don't worry about all them. You want to either use this Meticulous Matte from Chemical Guys, which is designed for matte vehicles, or the Superstar Car Wash from Fireball, which doesn't have any waxes or anything that's going to enhance shine and gloss in the soap. So these are just going to clean your vehicle. You can wash gloss vehicles with these, so if you have a vehicle that's got some matte and some gloss, or you've got a couple of cars and you don't want to have heaps of car wash, I always think you should use the right soap for the right job, but these are perfectly fine. They're not going to make a car look a matte. They're just not going to add gloss to it. So you can wash a gloss car with it. It won't look as shiny as if you used a soap that's going to be adding gloss, but it's good to know that these are safe to use on any vehicle, whether it's matte or not, but particularly if you have a matte vehicle, these are the soaps I would use. They're pH neutral, they're nice and safe, they're just going to clean and cleanse the vehicle, and you can use them in a bucket or you can use them in a foam cannon. Now with regards, shift them to the side. With regards to washing, as we mentioned, if you scratch a matte surface, you can't polish that out. So the only thing you can really do is either live with it or respray it, or if it's a wrap, redo the wrap in that section. And that's really something you don't want to have to do. You want to avoid that. So most of the scratches on people's cars come not from being dinged in the car park, it's more from their own washing of their vehicle. So the best practices for all car washing become much more important if you have a matte vehicle. The first thing I'd suggest, we recommend the 2-bucket washing technique for anyone with a vehicle. But with a matte vehicle, I really think it's worth you shelling out another 20 odd bucks on a bucket and another 20 odd for an extra mid slide or dirt trap. In the scheme of things, you know, they last ages. These are really solid, and it's a very simple process. So the idea is you fill one bucket with water, you fill another bucket with water and the soap, and then you use a mitt. Now, either of these will be fine. What you don't want to use is something that's flat. You don't want to use a sponge, for example, because that has no give. Because if there's dirt or grit on the vehicle, you want to have it something like this, where if the dirt and grit has somewhere to go, if you just had a flat surface and rubbed it across the vehicle, that's going to drag the dirt and grit across the surface of the vehicle where it'll scratch. If you've got something with a lot of long fibres like this one here, the reef, or this from Fireball, which is a sort of a more premium mitt, both of these are going to work really well, but they're going to not drag the dirt and that across the vehicle because there's somewhere for them to go. As you wash, that dirt is going to end up on the mitt. So it's on your car, it's got to go somewhere, you're wiping it off, now you've got dirt on the mitt. So the first thing is use the bucket frequently. Don't just keep going and doing half a car before you come back to get fresh water. Do a small section, come back. If you want to be really pedantic, you could do a wipe and then swap it, but that might drag out the wash time a bit. Now this bucket we would have filled with water, and as I go down, I'm going to rub this here to really knock all of the dirt and grit out, and that is going to fall through here and down the bottom where it's got quite tight bits there, so it's quite hard for that dirt and grit when the water swirls around to get back up. The dirt traps that we have work in the same manner. They don't have this side bit to rub down, but they'll trap the dirt at the bottom of the bucket, and that's what you want. Because each time you put your mitt in and you stir the water around, you're going to stir that up, and if there's nothing to stop that coming up, it's just going to get all around in your wash mitt and back onto your wash mitt, where you're going to end up scratching your car as you wash. So having one bucket with water that you would wash first, squeeze it out, and then into the soap bucket, and then back to washing. Wash normally in straight lines. The reason for that is if you do happen to scratch with a bit of dirt or grit, if it's in a straight line, it tends to be hard to know, unless you're on the right angle, whether it's just a line of the car or whether it's actually a scratch. Whereas if you go around like Karate Kid taught us, it doesn't matter what angle you're on, you're going to see that scratch and you're going to know it's a scratch. It's not a line of the car at all. So wash and dry in straight lines. Use the 2-bucket method and a good wash mitt, traps in the bottom, and and what else? And that's it. You know, it's not hard, it's not complicated. You can use a foam cannon as well. Because matte surface is rough, that's how it bounces light off at different angles, then it might find that the dirt will get inside those sort of pores and that roughness. It might be a little harder to clean off than other vehicles. Not dramatically, but it's there. When drying, the same thing is relevant. So I would not use a chamois or any flat towel that's going to drag anything across. So if I got a flat surface here and dragged it across the table, if there was any bit of grit, that would be dragged by my hand across and it would leave a scratch on the surface. Whereas if you've got something like this, this is the Performer, it's my favourite towel, it's got really long fibres in it. So it's a big towel, it's really absorbent, and that comes a lot from the twists of the fibres here, how they can really absorb and soak up the water. But for your matte vehicle, it's less about that water absorbency and more about the fact that if you drag it across, it's not going to drag those dirt and stuff across the surface. There's somewhere for it to go. This itself is a 70-30 blend. It's not going to scratch itself, but the risk isn't normally the towels. The risk is what's on the surface of the car. And even if you've cleaned it properly, there's still going to be a bit of dirt or dust in the air that lands or something that you did miss. So Having a good wash towel, I tend to have a couple. I mean, this will do a couple of cars, but it's a lot easier with a fresh dry towel. It's also important to dry them properly because you don't want to have water spots, because that's also, if the water spots etch in, before they etch in, you can use a water spot remover or an acidic wash like pH3, but once they've etched in, the only fix for that, again, polishing. What can't you do on matte cars? You can't polish. So taking a bit of time to get the right products and the right process when you're washing and drying your car will make a huge difference. Not so much of how it looks in 2 or 3 weeks' time, but how it's going to look in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and whether you're keeping it forever or whether it's going to be one that you're going to sell, you'll get a better resale value on it because it'll look better. And this is just, it's not hard. This is how a professional would wash their car there. Now, I saw some horror stories once where people had birds, bird crap on their car, and they didn't like it. They were traveling and they whipped into the petrol station and used that little brush that's in there and scrubbed the bird crap off. That was a bad idea. Now, they got the bird crap off pretty good, but in the process, what they did was irrevocable damage to the matte surface. The brushes had scratched the surface there, and they basically had to live with it because they didn't want to pay to repaint the roof of their car. So, yeah, the best thing is to either leave it, that's not ideal because bird crap can etch in, or have something like this on board. I mean, if you've spent a lot of money on a matte paint job or a matte vehicle or a matte wrap, you want to protect that investment. You don't want to have it looking horrible in a few months' time. So this is a quick detailer that's safe to use on matte vehicles. It's designed specifically for it, meticulous matte, and it's just a spray and wipe. This is not the most aggressive cleaner you're going to have, but you don't want the most aggressive cleaner. What you want is something safe that you can use. If I had a matte vehicle, I would keep this in the boot. I would have it there next to the spare tire or something, although my car doesn't have a spare tire, but that's a whole other story. In terms of cloths, that's important too for the same reasons we were talking about with the drying towel. Now, microfiber cloths, if they don't tell you whether they're 70-30 blend and they don't seem to make a big deal about that, then they're probably not good and I wouldn't buy them. Microfiber cloths are made of polyester and polyamide is more expensive. And polyester and polyamide, if you get a 70-30 blend of that, that is like the sweet spot of being soft, not scratching, and being really absorbent. But an 80-20 blend is a lot cheaper to manufacture. So most of those cheap microfiber cloths you have there are going to be 80-20, whereas you don't want that. You want a 70-30 blend. Now, the other thing is how it is woven and the actual manufacturing process. So these I like. They've got no tags. They've got rounded edges. The seam is offset. These are made in Korea. These are from Lovecars, which is a really good brand. They're known more for their polishing machines, but they do have a big range of accessories, and they color code their cloths. So this is really good, and while it's got a short weave, it's very absorbent and it's very soft. The Pegasus, however, look at that. Now that is thick, plush, and soft. I mean, that is also manufactured by Lovecars. It is also a 70-30 blend, but this is just at a different level of softness and absorption. Now, if you were trying to remove waxes and things like that, then this is going to make the job a bit easier because it's going to grab them more, but this is by far your safest bet. So if I had a matte vehicle, I would have these in the boot so that if something happened, I could safely and easily clean it without worrying about doing damage, because these sort of products aren't the sort of products you can just buy at a petrol station. And it never happens when you're close to home. It's always when you're like on a road trip to somewhere random. So one of the questions we get a lot is, can I protect it? You know, I've got a matte vehicle, it's either matte paint or it's got a matte wrap. Can I put a ceramic coating on it? Can I put a wax on it? Can I put a sealant on it? Well, yes, you can, but you need to be careful which one you use, because most of those products are trying to add shine. Now, there's some products that are safe to use there from Fireball that are installer only. So if you want to get a professional ceramic coating on yours, send us a message and we can find the right person. Let us know where you are too, and we'll find the right person and get them in touch with you, because it's important to use the right people that know what they're doing. If you're looking for a solution for yourself to do at home, Jet Seal Matte is a matte specific sealant that doesn't add shine, and it is quite unique. It's a sealant. It'll last, they say, up to 12 months. The challenge with applying a sealant isn't with the product itself, it's with your paint or your wrap. Because it is matte, that means that it is, by definition, it's going to be rough, because it's trying to bounce light at different angles and diffuse it. So in doing that, it means that when you put this product on, which is it's like a cream, looks like that. So you put that on your applicator like this. You know, there's kits we have. This will be the applicator I will be using, because it's got a really soft, I mean, you can use the foam ones, but this is wrapped with a soft 70-30 blend, the same cloth that's on the Roadie. They call this the Show Starter from Rockcar, also made in Korea. And you apply the wax on there, you spread it thinly across your paint, you wait for the time that it would say on the instructions here, which is normally about 15 to 20 minutes. That gives it enough time to bond to the surface, and then you would buff it off with a cloth like this, folded into 4, flat, not bunched. And the reason you have it flat is because that maximizes your surface area, and it's also the most efficient way. You get the job done quicker. It's about the size of your hand, and once that side gets clogged, you can flip, and you can flip, and you get, you know, 4, you get a quarter per side, so there's 2 sides, so that means you've got 8 different clean sides, and then you swap to a new cloth. Use more cloths. The more cloths you use, the easier it is, because the first wipe is going to always remove more sealant and wax. Once that ends up on your cloth, once the cloth gets saturated and clogged, you move from removing to just kind of smearing around, and that's when you're working hard and not getting results. So swapping more regularly, having more cloths. If you drop the cloth, wash it. Don't just pick it up and use it, because again, we've got to be careful here with matte vehicles. We don't want to risk scratching. These are all best practices for every car, but with a matte vehicle it's more important, because you don't have a lot of backup things you can do, like polishing. So with this, it works very well. The product is very good, but we do have occasions where people have put it on and they've left it on too long, or they haven't buffed it all off properly. Perhaps they were doing it at home at night, the lighting wasn't that good, they thought they got it off but they didn't, or they put some on and then dinner was ready, so they went and had dinner, and then they remembered and they did it late at night, or they did it the next morning. The longer this is on, the harder it's going to get, and that means the harder it's going to be to remove it. Now that's challenging sometimes on a gloss paint, but on matte, because it's rough, trying to clean and buff that off a rough surface when it's all in those little pores is more difficult. So I really recommend, firstly, this is a great product, but work at a small section at a time. I normally like to do like the top of the bonnet or the top of the boot, even better, because it's a nice working height. I'll do that small section, I'll set my stopwatch normally on my phone, and then I'll buff it off, and I'll make sure I'm happy. Because if I'm happy with that, then I'll move on to the next panel and I'll do the whole car. What you don't want to do is put it on the whole car in one go, leave it on there too long, and put it on too thick, and then you've got a nightmare trying to get it off your vehicle. So please, please don't do that. But it is a great product if you have a matte vehicle, but you need to follow the instructions and don't put it on too thick. The thicker it is, you don't need to have it thick. If you have it on there too thick, then it's going to be very hard to buff it off. So that's matte cars. I think that covers everything. If you have any other questions or something I haven't covered, please let us know in the comments or send us an email. Check us out at lovecars.co.nz. If this video has been helpful, we'd really appreciate your support. We bring in the best products, best car detailing products into New Zealand. We're trying to make them available for everyone. We're trying to educate people on how to use them and give helpful tips like this. And it's your support in buying products from us that makes this all possible. So really appreciate your support. Let us know how you get on.